Okay, I'm gonna just kind of finish up this subject. So I have two styles of ROM adapters. I've got the what would be the SOIC version, SOIC 32, and then the TSOP version, TSOP 44, converted to a TSOP 40. So these are for the ROMs 29F016 or 032s or the 080s, 5-volt ROMs. So previous videos kind of covered these in a little more detail, so I'm not going to go over that on this one. You can look at the other ones for a little more detail, but this is the revision I was talking about earlier, where I made some changes, like these two pads here, this pad here, this pad here, so that it would accommodate the DMG Z01 cartridge. This seems to be the one outlier that seems to be different than all the others, and so the way you can tell that which one this is, it has this little 139 chip up here in the corner, and it's very strange. I mean, this thing says 32 megabit mask ROM, but if you look at the way this thing's pinned, you got A21 coming in on pin 1 from the mapper chip, and then the edge connector A15, which is a chip enable. And then the other side you have ROM. This goes to the ROM chip enable, and then pin 5 goes to, or no, pin 6 goes to A21 to the ROM's A21. So you got A21 in from the mapper chip, and then A21 out. Chip enable in, chip enable out. And so it's very curious that this would be on a 32 megabit board, because as 139 decoding goes, anytime A21, which is pin 1, anytime that goes high, then the chip enable, which is pin 7, would go high also, which would disable the chip. So anytime you access the upper 2 megabytes of, assuming a 4 megabyte chip, to get to that A21, upper half, the chip would be disabled. So just why this chip is here really makes no sense to me. I really have no idea why this chip is here. Maybe it has to do with how the ROMs were the mask ROMs, were stamped at the factory, but whatever reason, makes no sense. But in light of that, so this adapter here can go here with a couple of modifications. So using the Rev B version of this, you have to do a couple of cuts for the 4 megabyte version. If you're doing a 4 megabyte ROM like I have here, then you have to do a few other things. But regardless, whether it's 2, 1, or 4 megabytes, after you mount the adapter, you have to cut. I don't know if you can see it or not, but you have to cut where that little jumper is. You have to cut the trace going to the board. Let me see if I can show it on this one. So yeah, so here you would have to cut this trace right there. Sorry for the shaky video. anyway, so you got to make that cut there, and then you have to run this little. You have to run this little jumper. Come on, focus. Focus. What's wrong with this thing? There we go. So you have to run that jumper to on this spot on the pad where it says A0. So that's where that goes. And then where it says D0, you have to just bridge those two on the adapter. And where it says D7, you just bridge those two as well. Then lastly, you do the A21 and the Z. So you'd make those 3 bridges. And then all right, so come on, focus. There it is. So if you were doing a 2 megabyte chip, then you would not have to do these 2 jumpers here, nor removing the chip here. I figure if anyone can actually mount this properly, then removing this chip should be no problem at all. So anyway, so 4 megabytes. So this is that, you know, pinning I was talking about, you know, on the, you know, 2 megabyte is underneath all that, and so it would just operate normally. But if you put a 4 megabyte chip on, or well, not necessarily chip, but if you try and program a 4 megabyte game onto this chip, 4 megabyte ROM, then it would not function at all. So whether you're doing a 2 megabyte game or not, you have to make 2 cuts on the back. So the cuts are right there, those 2 traces. So you cut those 2 traces. You put this little, and then you cut that trace underneath this little jumper thing that I showed you a second ago. And then you put this jumper on, and then if it's a 2 megabyte game, then you can stop there and do, you know, just mount the adapter and you're done. If it's a 4 megabyte game, then you need to remove this U5 and then do these 2 jumpers that I'm showing right here. And then this black wire here, this is just for my programmer, so I can program these easily. So yeah, this one was weird. This Z01. A lot of the ROM connections were very bizarre. So, but fortunately, my adapter is able to account for those differences, and so so it worked out. So, anyways, just going back now to just the theory of it all. You know, that you have like this is a mapper, you know, MBC1A. This is just Game Boy original. And then if you see a ROM like this, if it's 32 pins, which they will be, it's going to be 1 megabyte or smaller. Now, if it's an MBC1, it's almost going to be smaller. And so just because MBC1 is either expanded RAM or expanded ROM. So for example, here's an MBC1 mapper, and look, it's got a 44 pin mask ROM on it, which means this game is 2 megabytes or 16 megabits, which also means that by definition this RAM has to be 64K. You can't have both. It's either 64K or a bigger ROM. So, okay. So anyway, so that's an example of you know, the MBC1 difference is. And so you could, you know, use the ROM adapter on here, just like normal. So, you know, if you have an MBC 5, okay, that's capable of 4 megabyte ROM and 256K SRAM. So you can see this says 256. So that's SRAM, and then it's got a 44-pin mask ROM, which, come on, why is it? Mask ROM, which, you know, may or may not be 4 megabytes. I don't know, but all the connections are there. You know, if it was or not. So anyways, and so, you know, again, if you have 32 pins or less, and it looks like this, it's going to be 1 megabyte or smaller. And even the silking shows you 2 megabit, 4 megabit, 8 megabit, you know, mask ROM. So it can be anywhere from a 128 or 256 to K to 1 megabit, so 1 megabyte. You know, same thing, MBC5. So, you know, and then, you know, so essentially what you have is the difference between, you know, one has SRAM, you know, and one doesn't. So otherwise the map chips are the same. They do the same thing. So anyways, if you have a 32 megabit ROM and it's an MBC5, did I say 32 megabit? 32 pin. Gosh, I can't talk today. MBC5 and 32 pin mask ROM, it's going to be 1 megabyte. And so I say that only because for the megabyte, the 1 megabyte, you have to just do this little jumper right there in the center of the screen. And then you don't have to do anything else. I mean, you should put these resistors on. But the bottom resistor is for the write enable, so that's, I would say, mandatory. But the second resistor is there for A21, which, you know, a 1 megabyte ROM wouldn't have, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. So anyways, but the primary goal of this video was just to kind of go, okay, I figured out, you know, the differences on this thing, this bastard child, and so I came up with a pretty good solution where it's not too much, you know, hacking going on. Remove that one chip, add those 2 jumpers, only if it's a 4 megabyte ROM you're putting in, you know, with a 4 megabyte game. Otherwise, if it's 2 megabyte ROM and or game, then you can leave that chip there and you don't have to put these 2 jumpers in. It can just be the adapter with the normal adapter mounting procedures, which is cutting those 3 traces and then adding this little bridge there. Okay, well, that's about it. I guess I'll show you this one in action since, you know, why not? So, okay, so let me just stick this in game mode. So this was the one there. So, the last thing I'll say is that, turn this off. Last thing I'll say is that on the MBC ones, you know, like this, this ROM is most likely 512K, and if it is, then instead of loading up one of these adapters here, you know, you can still get the SOIC, you know, 512K ROMs, you know, package, you know, so you could just, you know, trade swap, you know, if the game is 512. If it's bigger than 512, then, you know, gotta go a different route. But yeah, you can still get these, and they're a little hard to find, but and we might make them available on Mordoff. But this is a very clean, easy swap if you know, you're making a small game. So, well, all right. Well, that's the end of the video. Again, I was really just thrilled to get you know, this one all figured out. So now my, you know, adapter can, you know, I'm sure there's a couple of oddballs out there, and in fact I know there are, but they're pretty rare. Some of the MBC2s, you know, have this mask ROM that's in a square that is unlike anything I've ever seen. But anyhow, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I got this one all tested and confirmed. So, all right, well, that's it. Thanks for watching.